Hello, this is Sarah Brash. Welcome back to my channel. So I want to do a video today. Well, before I get started, I just want to say, please, as always, please subscribe. Please like my videos. Please comment on my videos. Please share my videos. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would absolutely love to be able to monetize it at some point so that I can raise legal funds for my legal efforts against Yale. And also, I will have all of my fundraising links below. Please donate to my legal fund. My wonderful attorneys at Randazza will be back in court next month in September 2022 to continue fighting for due process, restoring due process and equal protection at Yale. So please donate to my legal fund. It would mean the absolute world to me. So this video is it's very somber content. It's horrifying content. It's very sad news. But I want to talk about the attack on Salman Rushdie today. Salman Rushdie, of course, is the author, the writer, the novelist who wrote his most famous work is probably, of course, the Satanic Verses, which was deemed heresy and apostasy, in particular by the Islamic governing body of Iran, and he's been living under fatwas for decades, in fear for his life, under threat of attack. And he was in New York State today, and he was giving a talk actually on how the United States is a safe haven for dissidents like himself to express themselves freely, to engage in their work freely, without fear of persecution from the government, of course, but also without fear of being attacked. And of course, Salman Rushdie was attacked today, and it's horrifying. I don't believe that we know his condition currently. We know that he was stabbed multiple times. We know he was rushed to the hospital. We know he went into surgery, and I just hope and pray that he will be okay and that he will pull through and he will be all right. But it's horrifying. It's horrifying that this happened. And I want to talk about how, in a sense, we're creating the perfect conditions for these kinds of attacks to happen in the United States, and we're creating the perfect conditions for an increase in attacks like this against individuals, and not just individuals of enormous stature and status and public figures like Salman Rushdie, and J.K. Rowling also, but private citizen nobodies like myself as well. Like myself, the victim of the Living or Not Being While Black hate crime hoax at Yale, the witch hunt at Yale, and also Amy Cooper, the victim of the Central Park Living While Black race hoax. And the reason why I say this, and certainly someone like J.K. Rowling, she responded to this attack today and said that this was horrifying. And of course, she must be even more terrified because she is constantly being demonized, vilified, deluged by, death threats, rape threats, threats of violence, just as I am. I am constantly deluged by death and rape threats, threats of violence. I had to be in hiding for more than 3 years to save my life. Amy Cooper is still in hiding. She is still deluged by death and rape threats, threats of violence. And the reason why this is happening is because the fake news press in the United States and the moral outrage industry in the United States are protected by the Supreme Court ruling New York Times v. Sullivan. And what this basically does is, well, in particular for public figures, but it also gives the fake news press and the moral outrage industry carte blanche to demonize, to vilify private citizen nobodies like me, like Amy Cooper, and to subject us to woke KKK cancel culture and trial by Twitter without due process, and to destroy our lives, and to destroy our careers, and to put our lives in the gravest of danger and to make us targets. And of course it does this for public figures, actual public figures like J.K. Rowling, but it also does this for private citizen nobodies like myself and like Amy Cooper. Because what it basically does is that it allows the fake news press to pretend that any event, no matter how meaningless, and I always say that the Living or Napping While Black hate crime hoax at Yale had to be the least newsworthy, the least meaningful event that happened on the world, on the planet, on May 8th, 2018, right? And so what the fake news press and moral outrage industry did is that they pretended that this was an actual newsworthy event. And then what they do is by pretending that it's an actual newsworthy event, they make a private citizen nobody like myself an involuntary public figure under New York Times v. Sullivan. So that means I'm allegedly a public figure. I was living like a hermit Rapunzel at the top of a tower at Yale, and all I wanted was to be left alone to complete my Saving the World project. But according to New York Times v. Sullivan, because the New York Times pretended that this was an actual newsworthy event, even though it was nothing of the kind, it was the least newsworthy thing that happened on the planet Earth on May 8th, 2018, but because the New York Times pretended that this was a newsworthy event, they get to say under New York Times v. Sullivan that I'm a public figure, just like J.K. Rowling is a public figure. And so they can attack me, vilify me, demonize me, endanger my life, destroy my career, destroy my life with near impunity under New York Times v. Sullivan. And it completely protects them from legal liability, protects them from defamation suits, and they especially target people like me, private citizen nobodies, vulnerable people with mental health disabilities like myself, and also people without the resources to fight back like myself. And so they basically then pretend that I'm a public figure, even though I was living like a hermit Rapunzel at the top of a tower on Yale's campus, just like J.K. Rowling is a public figure. So, but they're also doing this demonizing, vilifying, making targets out of actual public figures like J.K. Rowling too, of course. And so what I want to say is that this is creating the conditions, creating the perfect storm, creating the perfect conditions for additional attacks like the attack on Salman Rushdie, because the fake news press and the moral outrage industry have fully embraced the Sean Kane / ACLU / the appeal business model, which is subject, individuals, especially private citizen nobodies like myself, but individuals to woke KKK cancel culture and trial by Twitter without due process. And so this is creating a perfect storm, the perfect conditions to, anyone who expresses an opinion that is antithetical or critical of whatever dogma that someone like the man who attacked Salman Rushdie today is in the thrall of, then will very likely be inspired to try to attack that person. And the other thing that I wanted to address is the response of Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt, and also the response of Jamelle Bouie of the New York Times to Greg Lukianoff's and Jonathan Haidt's response. And so basically, Jamelle Bouie called the response of Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff clown shite, and basically said that, Greg Lukianoff of the Fire Org, who wrote The Coddling of the American Mind with Jonathan Haidt, that their response was that basically blaming, Jamelle Bouie was characterizing their response as blaming the attack on Salman Rushdie on campus speech and campus illiberalism, and that's what Jamelle Bouie was calling clown shite. But what I want to say about this is that, first of all, Jamelle Bouie, his entire body of work is clown shite, and also the entirety of the New York Times is clown shite. And I'm saying clown shite, of course, because we're on YouTube, and I don't want, to get anything, to get censored in any way. So I'm just going to go ahead and say clown shite. But Jamelle Bouie has spent the past more than 4 years pushing every living while black race hoax, pushing napping while black at Yale, and he has fully embraced the Sean King /ACLU/The Appeal Twitter race hustler business model, which is the business model of his employer, the New York Times. And basically, Jamelle Bouie's bread and butter, and the New York Times bread and butter, is to subject individuals, especially private citizen nobodies, especially vulnerable persons without resources like myself, to woke KKK cancel culture and trial by Twitter without due process for black trauma, moral outrage industry money. So Jamelle Bouie is a huge part of the problem, which is creating the perfect conditions for an increased number of these attacks, like the attack against Salman Rushdie, and the New York Times is a huge part of the problem. And so what I want to say is that, of course, Jamelle Bouie is failing to address this, and he's attacking Jonathan Haidt. Of course, equating free speech with violence is a component of the problem, but that's just one component of the problem. Okay, it's not just about conflating free speech with violence, right? That's a part of the problem. The problem is that you are now demonizing people. You are now demonizing the people that express those opinions that are critical of prevailing dogma, probably woke dogma. And the problem is that those people are being made out to be targets for this kind of violence. Yes, if you conflate free speech with violence, then someone who's in the thrall of some type of dogma, maybe woke dogma, is going to think that a violent reaction is justified to that speech that they construe as being violent. All right? That's a part of the problem. But that isn't going to happen until that person is made into a target by the fake news press and the moral outrage industry. That's not going to happen until the fake news press and the moral outrage industry elevates that person's profile and into the public consciousness, into the public sphere. And especially when we're talking about someone who's not a public figure, like myself, like Amy Cooper. And so the real problem is demonizing individuals. The fake news press and the moral outrage industry demonizing individuals, vilifying individuals, making them targets so that they can reap moral outrage industry money, making them targets. It's when you make those people, it's when the fake news press and moral outrage industry makes persons targets, that's when we have a problem. That's when we're likely to see a violence like what occurred today in the attack against Salman Rushdie. And what I want to say about Jonathan Haidt in particular, and basically Greg Lukianoff has enabled this, and the Fire Org has enabled this, and the entire heterodox community has enabled this. But basically Jonathan Haidt's position is that his whole shtick, his whole body of work, is that this is wrong, demonizing and vilifying individuals, subjecting them to woke KKK cancel culture and trial by Twitter without due process, subjecting them to social media moral outrage mobs, that this is wrong, leads to suicides, it's wrong to destroy the lives of innocent, nobodies, private citizen nobodies, it's wrong to destroy the lives of innocents, period. Except when it comes to me. When it comes to me, Jonathan Haidt thinks it's A-okay. Jonathan Haidt thinks it's A-okay. Jonathan Haidt, of course, turned his fall 2018 book tour for the Codling into a part of the witch hunt at Yale that almost got me killed. Okay, that almost got me killed. And so Jonathan Haidt thinks it's A-okay for this to be done to me, for me to be vilified by the fake news press and the moral outrage industry, for me to be demonized by the fake news press and the moral outrage industry. Jonathan Haidt did it to me himself. in the New York Times and on Sam Harris's podcast. Thinks it's perfectly fine for my life to be put in danger. No one else, just me. And so that part of what Jamelle Bouie said was clown shite really is clown shite. That really is clown shite. I mean, everything Jamelle Bouie does is clown shite. Everything the New York Times does is clown shite. But that position of Jonathan Haidt's is clown shite. He's never apologized for what he did to me. He's never acknowledged publicly what he did to me. He has continued his behind-the-scenes smear campaign against me to this day. Yeah, I've done other videos. I will do more videos about Jonathan Haidt. But that's basically everything that I wanted to say. I just want to close by saying that I am so devastated by the attack on Salman Rushdie today. I am absolutely terrified that we're going to see more of these attacks. I'm absolutely terrified about my own vulnerability, my own susceptibility to being attacked in this manner. And I'm terrified for J.K. Rowling, and I'm terrified for Amy Cooper, and I'm terrified for everyone who's been made a target by the fake news press and the moral outrage industry. And I'm just hoping and praying so much that Salman Rushdie is going to be okay, and that he's going to fully recover, and that he is going to pull through. And it would just be absolutely devastating if that didn't happen. And that's basically what I wanted to say. Please again subscribe to my YouTube channel, like, comment on, and share my videos. It means the absolute world to me. I would love to be able to monetize my YouTube channel at some point. And please donate to my legal fund so that we can restore due process and equal protection at Yale. And I will have all of the links to all of my fundraising links below. And I love you all so much, and thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.